Hi everybody, I'm Dustin.
I'm Onna, and we are not qualified to investigate the paranormal, and we might be less qualified than...
the generals of the Union Army.
I don't even have any response to that.
Oh, good. All right, hey everybody, welcome back. You might notice that our sound is a little different than what we've been recording it recently. That is because we are on the road this week. Very happy to actually be taking a vacation, and part of our vacation is us actually continuing to record. However,
on the road.
So the whirring that you are hearing is our air conditioning unit, which is so loud where we're at. So apologies for that.
We're not going to sweat for y'all.
No.
Sorry.
No. We are in a southern state, and it is hot. Hotter than our normal southern state that we're in.
And it makes me say y'all.
But welcome back. For those of you tuning in for the first time, welcome in. We will do the best we can to mitigate the background noise. But if you are tuning in, we have a really great episode. I'm really excited about this, even though I've had so little prep time. But I'm really excited to talk about it. Quick housekeeping. If anybody has any story that they want to hear, it is stories@paranormaloutsiders.com. Please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. We will answer it to the best of our ability. Anna, are you ready to just jump in?
I'm in vacation mode. Tell me a story.
The first part of the story is called The Witch.
Ooh.
In the small town of Willowbrook, the forest shrouded a small cabin nestled in the woods on the outskirts of the settlement. Mary, who was believed to be a witch due to her solitary lifestyle and knack for herbal remedies, dwelled within the humble shack. Whispers of her being a practitioner of Wicca and fears of curses kept the locals at arm's length, yet their need for her tinctures drew them in, often with apprehension. I never know if I'm saying that word right.
Apprehension?
Tinctures. Apprehension? I think I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm not saying that right either. I
didn't want to pick on you. Yeah, no, tinctures.
Tinctures?
Tinctures.
Tinctures.
Here, tinctures.
Tincture.
There you go.
They wanted her tinctures. Rumors grew darker, however, when young girls from the village started to vanish without a trace. The villagers searched everywhere, even braving the forest to approach Mary's cabin, suspicions heavy in their hearts. Their unease was only heightened when they noted Mary's visage changing from an elderly, haggard woman to a more youthful, feminine creature. Yet they had no solid evidence. Nothing but fear and the chilling change in Mary's appearance. Then came the evening when Sarah, the miller's daughter, heard an eerie noise, captivating and strange. Her mother, who was up in bed nursing a dreadful toothache with one of Mary's herbal tinctures, cried out in fear. The miller was summoned, only to find their daughter walking towards the forest, seemingly entranced by an unforeseen force.
A coven of witches.
Desperate, they rallied the townsfolk. The town farmer was the first to notice a distant light at the edge of the forest. As they approached, they found Mary standing in a clearing, bathed in an unnatural light. In her hand, she held a wand, pointed towards the miller's home, and Sarah, their precious daughter, was heading straight for that ominous glow. The farmer, with a surge of terror-fueled determination, quickly loaded his gun with silver bullets. Aiming at Mary, he fired a shot and found its mark on her head. Her scream pierced the quiet night, and the villagers subdued her thrashing form, tying her to a stake. The hastily constructed bonfire crackled, the villagers' faces grim and set in determination.
The story is just got me. I'm enraptured.
Mary's eyes blazed with fury as the flames licked at her. "Curse you all!" she spat, her voice ringing out. "Speak my name for a year, and I'll return. My spirit will come for you."
I am so offended.
Because she's Irish?
No, because she sounds terribly scary and witchy.
First of all, if you were being burned at the stake, I wouldn't sound good.
No.
The first thing to actually burn when you're burning alive is your lungs, because most people inhale the heat.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how I know that. Anyway.
Dark. Dark.
I'm a dark man.
Yes.
Welcome to my paranormal podcast of darkness.
So the witch was cursing them. Was that what was happening?
Curse you all, she spat.
Mm-hmm.
Speak my name before a mirror, and I'll return. My spirit will come for you.
Before a mirror?
A mirror. Mirror.
Like, who's a mirror?
Oh, you thought I was like, this is like in Arabia.
Yeah, like this is some...
Speak your name before a mirror.
You
thought that's what I was doing?
Who's
Okay.
a mirror? A mirror, okay.
A mirror. Tincture. Mirror.
Tincture's a hard word.
It is, because there's not like a thing at the end or in the middle that separates the multiple syllables.
Yeah.
It's tincture. It's not tincture like you would think it would be. The dreadful scene ended, and the villagers returned home, a grim silence shrouding them. Their fears were confirmed when they discovered rows of unmarked graves upon a thorough search of Mary's cabin. She had been draining the life from their innocent children, using their blood to renew their youth. And that's the end of The Witch.
I had no idea that this is the origin story of Bloody Mary.
Oh, it may or may not be.
Okay, you found multiple.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and you did
Multiple
give me
stories.
You did give me the clue that we're gonna do Bloody
I did.
Mary, but I didn't
said
look up
Bloody Mary
anything because there's nothing that, as a psychologist, I'm like, oh yeah, I know. Like I just didn't.
Right.
I was like, let me just let this wash over me.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated because we're going down the witch route. Oh, I have thoughts. Yeah.
And I know we're talking about witches, and we're going to continue to talk about witches, and just women in general who have power. But
that sounded worse than you meant. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. No. No. Oh my God. Yes, I am a misogynist. No. We're going to continue to talk about stories very similar to this. And for those of you who are listening, you know what's going on here. Onna does too. We're talking about Bloody Mary. But there are several origin stories here. Actually, there's more than several. I just picked the three most interesting. But some of them are...
You're leading me? Are you leading me?
I wouldn't say leading. I'd say I'm capturing the spirit of what a lot of people think this whole thing's about. So if you were somebody who was just looking this up, you would see these stories and be like, this is the origin. This is where this is from. This is who I'm summoning when I'm doing this ancient teenage ritual.
It is. It is a teenage rite of passage. It's the immediate thought for me is like, man, we didn't have Google when I was doing this. So right. I can't even put myself in the shoes of a kid who can just look this up.
Right.
That like immediately ruins the fear factor to me.
Yeah. So we have two other stories here.
Mm-hmm.
Both very interesting.
Tell me two more stories.
The second story is called The Queen, the eldest daughter of King Henry VIII. Mary's early life was fraught with turmoil. Her mother, Catherine of Aragon... Is it Aragon?
Aragorn?
Not Aragorn.
Not Aragorn, that's Lord of the Rings.
That's Lord of the Rings. This is a real thing.
Yeah.
Aragon.
Yeah.
Okay. Catherine of Aragon was put aside by her father in favor of Anne Boleyn, in the process sparking the English Reformation and the severance of England's ties with the Catholic Church.
That whole relationship between Catherine and Henry is...
Yeah, I know, and I know you've watched like the Tudors, and like you've got some opinions about this.
I read lots of Wikipedia about Henry VIII.
Hey, most of this is taken from Wikipedia. That's okay. I think it's fine.
I need a good book. If anyone has a good Henry VIII book recommendation, send it.
I'm going to talk more about poor Mary here.
I know so much less about Mary
that I found out while I was. This portion is so short, and it really doesn't do her life justice.
Mm-mm.
I will talk a little bit more about how I felt, I guess, more than anything when I was researching her life.
Yeah, well, you're not going to do her justice. That's the whole theme of her life.
Right. Nope, there goes the AC. So everybody, welcome to just normal human speaking. Okay.
Well, we get hot.
Upon ascending to the throne after the death of her half-brother, Edward VI, Roman numerals, they're dumb. Stop putting Roman numerals in things. Mary was determined to reverse the Reformation and restore Catholicism in England. My people have been led astray, she told her advisors. We must bring them back into the fold of the true church. Man, I'm really bad at doing an English accent tonight. Hold on.
No, you do sound a little Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah. Oh, do I?
Not the first and not her sister.
Like, let them eat cake, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
okay.
A little, but no, it's a little more Windsor.
What? No, it's too cockney.
Yeah. I actually have no idea if did she speak Spanish? Did she speak
No,
with
she
a
spoke
Scottish
English. She spoke like the
accent?
English, right?
Yeah.
My people have been led astray, she told her advisors. We must bring them back to the fold of the true church. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. That was very like Queen Elizabeth, like a current Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Mary's reign became known for the harsh measures she used to reimpose Catholicism. This era was marked by the Marian persecutions.
Okay.
Where Protestants were condemned as heretics.
Yeah.
I will not tolerate heresy, she declared. I will root it out, no matter the cost.
Yeah, that's very Margaret Thatcher.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Over the course of her reign, it's estimated that nearly 300 Protestants were burned at the stake for heresy. Among them were prominent figures such as Thomas Cranmer, never heard of him, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Canterbury.
Thomas Cranmer was the Archbishop of Canterbury.
He sure was.
Yeah, didn't he would advise people? Okay.
I don't know. What does the Archbishop of Canterbury do?
Well, I think Canterbury is one of the oldest churches in England.
Okay, well, he was the Archbishop of it.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It tells you things about him in whatever year this was. These acts of brutal religious repression deeply ingrained the moniker Bloody Mary in the popular psyche. As the burnings increased, so did the fear and resentment amongst her people. Why does the Queen punish us so? They would ask each other, huddled in the darkness, the glowing of burning stakes flickering in the distance. Her reign, however, was short. Mary died in 1558. That's what year it was. Having failed to secure the Catholic succession. Her half-sister, Elizabeth I, ascended the throne and swiftly returned the country to Protestantism. Protestantism.
You don't know. That's right.
Consigning the era of Bloody Mary to the annals of history. And that's the end of the second part of the story.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research on Mary I's life during my research for this story. And it was very hard for her. She had what a lot of historians and medical historians have kind of determined to be endometriosis, which means she had problems conceiving a child. She had other issues as well. If you have endometriosis or have had it in the past, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, I'm a dude, so I don't have a uterus, so I can't have these kinds of issues. But I do, not firsthand, secondhand, I have seen this affect people who are close to me in my life, and it's not an easy thing to deal with. But also, she was disowned by her father. There was lots of other things that were going on in her life where she was just, really trying to kind of be the princess that she was brought up to be, but also someone who was trying to be married off at the age of 11 and 12, and then was kind of shunned by her father, who was just kind of a dick. Henry VIII was just kind of a dick. He really was.
She was immediately shunned for not having a penis.
Right. Yeah. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, yeah.
Like there was no
part one. She didn't have a penis.
Wanted.
Part two.
She was not wanted.
Yeah. She was not wanted. But I will say that from what I've seen, Henry VIII did start to change the laws a little bit surrounding her because he did love her.
He did?
Yeah, there were a lot of reports of him, like historians have kind of said, like he did start to kind of gear things towards a woman taking over after he died. After she was born, he was kind of like, I love this little girl. Like, we're gonna.
What if I don't have?
What if this
a
is
boy?
it? Yeah.
But that's so early on in his journey. He was really young.
Right.
Then that's interesting. Again,
still a dick.
Oh my gosh.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I thought he sent her away really early. Yeah.
Oh, he sent her away. Not early,
I don't know how
but
much the norm was that for.
He got in a big fight with the Catholic Church. It took him like 10 years to get divorced from her mother. Like, it was a really long time. So anyway.
He had to start a new church to do that. That's, not
this isn't a history podcast, but this is part of this.
We are not qualified to investigate history.
Part of the title of this, of course, is Bloody Mary. And that's where this name kind of comes from, part of it. Now, the first story we told you was what is kind of believed to be the folklore of Bloody Mary. However, this is where the name comes from. And there are several different origins from where this being, the supernatural being, can come from. And I really want to kind of prompt everybody for that before we get into the actual ritual or act of Bloody Mary, because it's not complicated. And most of you probably know what it is.
Maybe not. Do you have any stories of that? I don't even know what you would call it. Is it an urban legend?
It is yeah. And there have been papers written about it.
Okay.
Like actual published in scientific journal papers about the folklore of it. And these are actually the 3 stories that are mostly talked about in those papers. I will tell you that after I tell you the third part of the history or the origins.
Thank you. So I've just added part 4. You're welcome, everyone.
So the third part is called The Serial Killer. In the dark era of the antebellum South, in a secluded cabin nestled in the outskirts of a small town, lived a wealthy woman named Mary Worth. Inherited wealth from her father, a prosperous plantation owner, had granted her comfort and power. But as the cotton industry suffered, Mary found herself drawn to a darker trade, hunting down those brave souls who dared to flee the chains of slavery. When the cotton fails to yield gold, she mumbled to herself, her icy blue eyes reflecting the harsh reality, the hunted becomes the bounty.
She sounds terrible.
The Underground Railroad was a beacon of hope for countless enslaved individuals seeking liberty, yet the journey was fraught with perils. And among the most fearsome was Mary Worth, armed with vicious hunting dogs and an uncanny knack for tracking. She was a force to be reckoned with. Word of her cruelty began to spread amongst the slaves. Whispers carried in hushed voices. Mary doesn't just capture the runaway, she kills them, a hushed whisper echoed in the quarters. She takes pleasure in our pain. One brave soul, a former slave named Samuel, dared to uncover the truth. Leading a group of determined abolitionists, he ventured into the lair of the beast. The horrors they discovered within Mary's cabin were beyond their wildest nightmares. Human remains, shackles, and personal items of the disappeared. God help us, Samuel gasped, his heart pounding in his chest as he held up a small locket, recognizing it as belonging to a fellow escapee. The group barely managed to flee before Mary returned, but not before gathering evidence of her atrocities. They carried this grim truth back to their town, the weight of their discovery heavy in their hearts. In the face of irrefutable evidence, Mary was tried and condemned. As the sentence was passed, a collective shudder ran through the courtroom. Mary Worth, the judge's voice boomed, for the inhumane crimes against those seeking freedom, you are hereby sentenced to hang until death. And so, Mary's reign of terror ended, her death serving as a chilling symbol of the unimaginable horrors endured during the era of slavery. Her story lived on, a grim reminder of a time when human lives were hunted and treated with brutal disdain. So if you notice, the first story and the last story have many themes in common. An old woman living in a shack, shunned kind of from society, out in the middle of nowhere.
Doing terrible things.
Yeah, that's right. Both kind of either killing people or accused of killing. The first one was girls. Mm-hmm. The last one was slaves trying to flee the Underground Railroad. This is all folklore of mistrust, I guess.
Folklore.
Would be the best.
So Mary Worth's story isn't substantiated?
They're both of their names were. Now,
I was going to ask because she sounds... that was what year, Mary Worth? What era? That would have been... Was it the 18th century or were we early 19th?
Underground Railroad.
So that should be
before the Civil War, right?
Yeah, that should be the early 19th century, early 1800s. And what I knew of the first woman serial killer in America is late 1800s, like out west.
Right.
So that was my first thought. Was like, wow, that's not the first American serial killer woman story that I heard.
This is from an article from allthatinteresting.com, which I'm sure is a very reputable news source. But either way, I think I have seen kind of threads of this story throughout my research, so I'm going to go with what they're saying here. I'm just going to read it to you verbatim.
Okay.
That's okay. Elizabeth Bathory was very real. A Hungarian noblewoman, she was charged with killing at least 80 girls and young women between 1590 and 1610. Rumors spread that she subjected them to sickening torture, sewing their lips shut, beating them with clubs, and burning them with hot irons. Allegedly, she even bathed in their blood in order to maintain a youthful appearance. So
another thematic.
That's another theme, right? It's a woman living on the outskirts, a witch, whatever, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
What I think really sucks about the first story is that it's like this woman who didn't really want to live in this society, but she still needed to live by this settlement, right, in order to survive, because she couldn't survive on her own.
Yeah. This is, you're piecing together so much of what happened to women who were accused of witchcraft.
Right.
Yeah.
She supplied the men and the women of the town with different herbs that helped cure hangovers or helped cure a lot of things within the town. And when women started disappearing, they of course turned to her because she was the most unholy, quote unquote, of them. Even though it was probably John Smith who was raping and killing women and then burying their bodies, probably near the witch's hut, quote unquote witch's hut.
Yep.
And that's what was going on. But anyway, so that's, again, the last story, the first story have a lot in common. The middle story, not so much. And yet, this phenomena is called Bloody Mary.
The last story, was that another Bloody Mary?
Yes, origin.
What was her name?
Mary Worth, the same name.
No. The one you just told. The Hungarian.
Hungarian
murderess.
Was Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory. Bathory.
Yeah, but what's in her name? I mean, is that well documented? That's so early. That
is well documented. Okay. The other two, the first two are the first and the third that I told you. It's debatable whether they even existed.
Yeah, and those are American stories versus European.
That's right.
So we have two fairly well documented European stories and two poorly documented American stories.
Right.
Another thematic element that may come up in things like urban legends.
America was the Wild Wild West.
And honestly, that's a really important piece that you and I know just from doing some family history research in the UK. The records are amazing compared to record keeping in the United States. Yeah. And that is understandably a different mentality around lineage and around immigration that we had.
Okay.
Totally sad.
So are you ready to hear a story?
Yeah.
Bloody Mary.
Okay. Yeah.
Once upon a time in the small town of Ipswich lived a curious and courageous teenager named Lucy. Lucy had grown up hearing the tales of the ghostly figure known as Bloody Mary. The stories both terrified and intrigued her. So much so that she decided to try the ritual for herself one late summer evening. Lucy waited until her parents were fast asleep before she crept into the bathroom, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound being the creaking of the old wooden floors beneath her feet. "Here goes nothing," she whispered to herself, her voice echoing slightly in the cold, tiled room. She stood in front of the mirror, the moonlight filtering through the small window, casting an ethereal glow. Taking a deep breath, she chanted the name Bloody Mary 3 times, her voice a trembling whisper. Nothing happened. She waited in the silence, staring into her own wide eyes reflected in the mirror. But then she felt a sudden chill in the air. It was a cold that seeped into her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. Slowly, the mirror began to fog over, as if the room was suddenly filled with a cold breath. Lucy's heart pounded in her chest, her eyes wide with fear and anticipation. Then the reflection in the mirror started to change. It was no longer her own face staring back at her, but a spectral figure. A woman with hollow eyes and a chilling gaze. Lucy gasped, stepping back in horror. The woman in the mirror moved with her, her ghostly figure mimicking Lucy's every move.
That's what mirrors do.
She was pale with dark, shadowy hair, and her eyes bore into Lucy's with an intensity that made her shudder.
"I am Mary,"
the figure spoke, her voice echoing around the bathroom.
"Why have you summoned me?"
Lucy, summoning up her courage, replied, "I wanted to see if the legends were true."
"And now that you know they are?"
the ghostly figure asked, her eyes never leaving Lucy's. I'm not sure," Lucy stammered, her fear gradually replaced by a strange sense of calm.
"Be careful what you wish for, child,"
Bloody Mary responded, her tone almost sympathetic.
I am. A fairy godmother.
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
grant you your
this is
wishes.
going pretty well so far, I
It's
gotta
not
say.
that scary, yeah.
Then, as suddenly as she appeared, she vanished, leaving only Lucy's reflection in the mirror. From that night on, Lucy never attempted the ritual again. The encounter had scared her, but it also gave her a new perspective on life. She learned to respect the legends of the unseen, understanding that curiosity can sometimes lead to an unexpected revelation. It's a very positive spin on
It is.
what's going on here.
So
Let me, real quick,
Yeah.
before we close that out,
we're not closing that out. I was going to ask you questions about this young woman from Ipswich.
you shouldn't, because this is just a amalgam of all the rituals that teenage girls and boys, by the way, like I know that everybody's like, oh, teenage girls play this game, blah blah, they want to see their husbands, like that's like kind of how it started in the 1950s.
Oh
No, like boys and girls do this. Yeah, I don't know, I don't fucking know.
wow, there's way too you probably could have brought me down so many different rabbit holes with this is.
Oh god. So here's the ritual, the last part, the ritual.
How to do it, an instruction guide.
The Bloody Mary ritual is an urban legend and popular folklore shared among many cultures, particularly in English-speaking countries. While variations exist, the basic ritual usually involves the following steps. Stand in front of a mirror, typically in a dimly lit or completely dark room. Often this is a bathroom, as they commonly have mirrors and can be easily darkened. Speak the name Bloody Mary multiple times, typically 3. There is an exact number that can vary depending on the versions of the tale. The phrase is often repeated as a chant or invocation. According to the legend, Bloody Mary's ghost is then supposed to appear in the mirror. Depending on the variations of the story, she might be benevolent or malevolent, beautiful or monstrous. The origins of the ritual are not entirely clear. So that's very simple. We all know, I think we all know this. This is a very
Did you do it as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Very common. I don't want to say rite of passage, it's not the right word, but it's a very common.
I use that phrase. Like it's on the short list of things to do in a sleepover.
Right.
Yeah. Or
Bloody
when you're
Mary.
bored on an afternoon or a night with friends. Yeah.
So with everything you've just heard, let's start with the origin stories.
Okay.
They're clearly themes.
Mm-hmm.
All of them have women.
Mm-hmm.
All of them have women with some kind of power to an extent.
Yeah.
The first one is a witch.
Uh-huh.
The second one is a queen.
Uh-huh.
And the third one is a rich woman.
Uh-huh.
So we have that
yeah.
whole thing. I don't know if we need to talk about. We
Yeah,
should talk
well,
about it, of
it's
course,
hard for
but-
me to paint the picture that I guess I was expecting to paint because, as you said, in some versions of the lore, she is not a threat. Like when she appears, she can be benevolent, which is not the version of the lore that I was exposed to. Because then thematically, when you look at the position of power and connect it to a malevolent woman, it's women in power or threat. That's one piece of the themes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, Mary I killed lots of people by
Mm-hmm.
burning them at the stake.
Sure.
Lots of other things.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 other women in the story were burned at the stake.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to like then you're going into witches and the entire lore of that.
That'll be a totally different.
Isn't actually women
episode.
in power because they don't actually have magical power. That's the reverse of it. Is they were a threat not because they had magical powers. They were a threat to the structure of society, of patriarchy and marriage, because they were single women living alone, working. That's it.
How dare they do that?
I know. Yeah.
Mary I was not a single woman. She actually really loved her husband, from what I read.
Yeah.
He was just a dickhead. Once again, another asshole. He cheated on her continuously, according to many accounts. She loved him. She really wanted to just have a family. Mm-hmm. By the time she was old enough, or by the time she became queen, she couldn't have children because of her endometriosis and many other things that were going on, or stress.
Yeah.
Who God knows what else, right?
Well, yeah. As far as I know, like part of the painting of the history of her was she is a threat to Queen Elizabeth. She's a threat to her sister's power. She's a threat to the Protestant church. She also was a threat to a male heir being actually entitled to the throne as a female. So,
by all accounts, she really loved her brother and really tried to help him as much as she could.
Her little brother who...
She hated Elizabeth. Hated her. For sure.
Well, I don't know how
brother.
much. Yeah, they painted that as an interesting thing because they were both so young. I don't know. Again, I need a good book on this, and their brother was even younger.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All this aside.
Yeah, all of this aside. Well, it's not aside in the fact that like, why would she be painted as a malevolent. And it has two pieces. It is that she did cause the deaths of and the persecutions of many people.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that many monarchs in the UK have done, if not all.
Right, but that's literally where this whole thing comes from, right?
Yeah.
We don't call the Magna Carta, whoever signed that, Edward the First. Who signed that?
Oh, God.
We don't call it the Bloody Edward story.
Well, and that is another piece to connect to, is that if this is, I don't know how common Bloody Mary is as an urban legend or a practice in the UK as compared to the United States. Do you know that?
No.
Of like, what we're really talking are about sociocultural historical explanations for an attitude about why this would be scary to do.
Right.
Why? But the paranormal question is like, have people ever actually had experiences like this young woman in Ipswich?
So I think one of the experiences I read about was really interesting. It was a girl who did it, said she didn't believe in it, all of a sudden saw something in the mirror, tried to run out of the bathroom, tripped and fell, and broke her hip.
Ooh.
In the area where the bullet was said to have hit Mary in the story where the farmer shot her with the silver bullet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is an elaborate set of just
things
stuff.
that happen.
Coincidences that happen.
So, and this is really tough about this case because we've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have had the experiences. Some of us haven't. I never did. Never had any experience with it. Now, I'm sorry. I never had anything happen when I did the experiences.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that can happen psychologically where...
Did you get scared?
Probably.
Because
Yeah,
I have to tell you, like, it's so deeply embedded in me that every time you started to tell these stories just now, like, and it brought up the chills, especially when you start to talk about how to do the quote ritual of Bloody Mary, and you go into the room, and I remember viscerally that feeling and how scary it is, and to the point where many people might not even look in the mirror when they go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. It's scary.
Yeah. Well, now we have all kinds of horror movies where it's like the mirrors are
such a trope.
Things.
Oh man.
That are doing things.
Yeah, and why that is probably a combination of the fact that it's scary to see reflections,
right?
To look in mirrors in the dark because it's not clear, and it kind of goes back to the thing we've talked about of when you're looking at a person but you can't clearly see them. It's very scary, and we don't see very well in the dark, and we just can't we cannot accurately perceive what's happening, so we perceive threat.
There are cultures also that believe that mirrors can allow spirits to move between them. Yeah. Specifically demons sometimes, right? Yes. So there's this Christian belief that a demon can see itself in a mirror and you can see the demon in the mirror. There's also a Chinese tradition where they use mirrors to ward off demons because the demons can see their own reflection and it scares them.
And they go in the other direction.
Yeah. So there's lots of really cool like kind of folklore.
There's stories around it. That's one piece of why you see it in films. There's so many different stories around mirrors. Then, as I said, it's just scary even if you don't know any or lore or legend as a human. Mm-hmm. It's just phenomenologically, like perceptually scary to see mirrors in the dark and from childhood. And then third, in film, it is very cool and fun to use mirrors. Yeah. It's just a challenge that filmmakers like. Okay. Because you have to make it so you can't see the camera. So one of the phenomena I read about in this whole thing as well is if you stare at yourself long enough, you start to see like a disfigurement of yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything on that? Yeah. So, I mean, this is like a basic connection to like what we call body dysmorphia, where there's a preoccupation with self-image and that people have spent so much time sort of looking at themselves and not in a narcissistic way, but particularly in a critical way. Oh. And so they're looking and then they're going to start to, but even if they're not perceiving themselves with that critical lens, when you look at yourself long enough, it's gonna start to seem distorted because mirrors also are not reality. They're flipped images. They can have all sorts of flaws in their design. They can be warped. They can be grainy. They can have all, and also our visual processing isn't reality. So and when you stare at something long enough, your eyes get tired. There's so many reasons why those things get distorted looking at ourselves. Yeah. So why do kids do this? They want to be scared. Yeah. No, it's like watching a horror movie. Why do we watch horror movies, right? We're into it. We don't have to believe it. We want to have the adrenaline rush, whatever it is. Yeah. You don't have to even think you're going to see something.
I think one part of this ritual that's definitely more American westernized is the belief that if you say an incantation into a mirror with a candle, it will show you your husband. It will show you who you're going to marry.
Yeah.
I think that's like a thing.
So that
I saw during this research.
Yeah, that sounds like it might. Oh gosh. I wonder if that's more connected to spiritual practices of like it being a spell of another kind, not the spell of summoning Bloody Mary, but the spell of summoning your future, like some psychic things or some other kinds of belief systems. Maybe, I have no idea. That sounds like it could be a whole other episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It like, oh man, it's so visceral. It just sticks with people for so long. And how do these things keep going even when none of us know the origin stories or even look into what they are? And we don't even know what Bloody Mary is, like the girl from Ipswich.
I think it's one of those things where, there's one person at the camp out or sleepover or whatever that knows the story because of an older sibling who's done it with them or because of somebody. And so it's perpetuated throughout that. Right. So you have these people in your life who at the time of your life are really important. Right.
Someone there, an older sibling or someone.
Yeah. There's always someone there who's telling you the story.
Yeah.
Right. And you believe them because they're older than you or they're more experienced than you or whatever it is. And so that's how these stories are kind of perpetuated, right? And how they're spread throughout history is always word of mouth. There's no written down. Although now there probably is like, let's look it up online and see how we're supposed to do it properly, right? There's some kind of ritual that you are supposed to do. But the rituals haven't changed just because the medium has changed. In me telling you what that ritual was, that was me doing research online. So this is still the standard ritual where you say Bloody Mary in the mirror 3 times. You can be holding a candle. You don't necessarily have to be.
Did you have to say it multiple times?
Yeah, you've got to say it.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 times.
Yeah.
That's a pretty standard thing. 3 times. 3 times. Sometimes you spin around, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, we did the spinning around.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's clearly
you're getting dizzy.
Designed to get you in an extra altered state, and you're, more likely to see something distorted and your own image in the mirror distorted. It's going to look weirder, even weirder because you're dizzy. Yeah.
There's lots of things to go on here when it comes to Western culture or just culture in general. Because this isn't just a Western thing.
Yeah. We
can point to the Lady in White, which we haven't really talked about yet, although we have hinted towards, which is a very common theme.
I do appreciate what you're pointing out of like what kids do to each other. Like as rites of passage, older kids to younger kids, and all the things we used to do. Like there's an egg on your head, and the yolk's running down. Like crack an egg on your head. All the chills, chills, or the feather. You're as light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Light as a feather.
Yeah, even if you don't have a Ouija board, all these little things we do because, and I don't think it's just we want to be scared. I do think we have questions at a young age, and no one answering them. Sometimes. Questions about physics, questions about that we don't know that they're questions about physics, but the idea of magic, the idea of the afterlife, ideas, and we make up stories. Or we want to hear, we're very susceptible to stories.
What is it about putting ourselves in danger?
Yeah. So from that's
like we all know that like if you say her name, she will appear to you. Like, that's the thing right now. Yeah. In the story I told, she was a very friendly ghost.
Yeah,
like that was it.
Yeah.
But in a lot of these other stories, it's like no, she will show you how you die, or she will she'll kill you, or she'll trip you and you'll break your hip, like whatever it is. Right?
So,
There's something along those lines. So what is that part of it? The danger, the fear, what drives us?
So this is to me really getting at the adolescent brain, the developing brain that starts to become more and more motivated for experience. This is what gets us to go from childhood where we're very much attached to our parents and we need their safety and security to then become more independent by this rush of the dopamine pathways in our brain saying go out and experience things. And that we have to have then some thrill in the unknown, because if we were just afraid of everything that could potentially hurt us, then we wouldn't leave. We wouldn't develop, we wouldn't grow, we couldn't leave our home and become independent people. Yeah. So that's the adolescent brain is wired for experience. We go out and do things. And then when we're bored and we can't go out because you have to sleep over with your friends, but you have to stay home, right? Our parents want to keep protecting us even into our adolescence, then we're going to find other ways to seek thrills and experience new experiences.
We should just all be allowed to go down to the bodega and do cocaine.
No.
Okay.
You're not going to get me on tape advocating for cocaine use in my adolescence. No, don't wire your brain for dopamine addiction. Yeah, so I think that that's pretty clear why we do these things. Yeah, when you think about it developmentally, but the content of those things is a little more like, why are we so apt to do something that has no clear like historical social ritual? Is like we don't even know why we're doing it or who Bloody Mary is. We just do it. You'll probably notice themes of spells or what we might see as like the occult rituals when the layperson who actually has no practice in these things as actual religion or their day-to-day spiritual life, they're very brief. So think about like Harry Potter. It's pretty easy to do magic in the universe of Harry Potter.
You just gotta think about it.
You just bibbity boppity boo. Like you say a few words. That's clearly not Harry Potter spell, but oh boy, Specto Patronum. You just need to learn some like hacked up Lat sounding things.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it. I don't know. There's probably a whole lot there on things in threes. Yeah. Sorry if I don't have an answer to that.
No, it's okay.
I don't have all the answers.
Then what are we doing here? Why are we even talking
what
right now?
What do you think?
Well, threes are always like kind of an important, like things of threes are always an important number, right? Mm-hmm. So there are 12 apostles. There are
derivatives of three or multiples
derivatives
of three.
Multiples, like numerology, like that's always kind of a big thing, like that we count.
Knock 3 times.
Knock 3 times. See, you know.
I don't know why though.
Right.
I would just go back to
Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Like there's so many things that are 3. In religion, not just in Christian religion, although that's the only example I gave. There are just a lot of things that happen in threes. And 3 is a number of power, I think is what a lot of people believe. Mm-hmm. And in that might have come from our ancestors who were like, when you're hunting a fucking woolly mammoth and you just have one person, you're fucked. If you have 2 people, one of you is fucked. If you have 3 people, though, one of you can come from one side, one of you can come from the other side, and one of you can come from underneath. And you can kill the thing.
Strategy.
Yeah.
I think from a linguistic or language perspective, you say something once, you might just be like off the cuff, babbling.
Yeah.
You say something twice, you're maybe perseverative, and maybe you didn't mean to say it, like you're kind of stuttering maybe. So babbling, stuttering, then you say something 3 times, there's an intention.
Okay. So if you say something once, it's just you saying it once. If you say something twice, you might just be repeating yourself for the sake of repeating yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you say something a 3rd time, then you're trying to drive it home.
Yeah.
So if you say something once, then you're just saying it because you're saying it. If you say something twice, then
I see what you're doing here. That was the 3rd time. And then it starts to become like, clearly you're repeating yourself.
And now I'm not repeating myself, so you'll never remember it. Oh, no. Well,
I just think a good way to tell a good story or write a good essay is here's the intro. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The body. Here's what I'm telling you. And the conclusion. Here's what I told you.
5-paragraph essay format.
That's it.
What's the magic number of 5? No.
Well, it's the number of paragraphs. It doesn't really matter, but it's 3 parts.
3
you
parts.
love parts, 3 parts. You add a 4th part and you're like, hey, it's hanging. What do you do? Now you've had 5 parts?
I don't know where to go with this whole thing that we're talking about now that we have a 5th part. What am I going to say? No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, there is something in 3 where it definitely adds. And I know that's like, what is it? What's the adage? 3rd time is a pattern. Like the first time is happenstance. Mm-hmm. The 2nd time is coincidence. And the 3rd time is a habit or pattern.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, really interesting take on that.
There we go.
So when you say it the 3rd time,
to the cognitive, linguistic, psychological explanation of the power of 3.
There you go. And so when we talk about Bloody Mary and someone has to say their name 3 times, it's like if Bloody Mary is a sleeping spirit somewhere and someone says their name once, then Bloody Mary's going to be like, I don't know, they just said it once. Mm-hmm. Twice, they're like, oh, well, they might have said it twice because they were talking about me. 3rd time, it's like, no, they're trying to stump, so I'm going to show up.
In mirrors, in bathrooms.
In mirrors?
And I'm just waiting around for that to happen. And here we go to the criticism of her being any of these people. Mary Queen of Scots ain't got time for your bullshit.
She don't got time for nothing.
Yeah, come on. And then the first is just a random witch story that at any point now people should recognize the history of American.
Well, she cursed them. I don't blame her for doing it, but she did.
Yeah, but that is the trope of like every witch trial in Salem that she cursed the entire town.
If someone's burning you at the stake, would you curse them?
You already said it's very unlikely. You alluded to the fact that it's very unlikely that people would speak anything discernible while being burned at the stake. If their lungs
so
and
maybe
their
they just
vocal
heard it.
cords are burning, very little will be discerned of what they're saying.
Maybe she was saying, like, stop burning me. And they were just like, I heard that she cursed us
because maybe we feel a little guilty for killing someone in public. Yeah, not good things to do. Yeah, it's going to sit with you for a little while. And maybe your whole society and your whole culture will have a deep-seated shame for how poorly you treated certain people.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What do I do?
What do we do while we create these? And then, so I think we're summing it up with that. Like, the themes here are the lore of not lore. There's two different words. The draw of lure of doing thrill-seeking things when you're an adolescent, and that some of those things may be rooted in your culture as implicitly and explicitly misogynistic.
And then a mic drop. Boom. Goodbye. Bye. Okay, that's 3 times. Everybody should be gone by now. If not, thank you all for listening in this week. Again, sorry for the audio quality. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. I say it 3 times, it must be true.
This is the power of 3. Our podcasts get more powerful when we repeat things 3 times.
I guess so. I guess no, okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm done. Okay. I'll stop doing that. Anyway, thank you all for listening in. If you do have any stories that you want us to talk about or have any comments on our current subject, please email them into stories@paranormaloutsiders.com and we will respond. Thanks for listening.
Bye.